All right, so I believe that one of the most surprising things that you are going to look back on this time and say, oh my goodness, if I'd only known that the cannabis bull market that I wanted from 3, 4 years ago was going to happen after it crashed. All right, I'm starting at the end instead of the beginning. I think that cannabis stocks are just so destroyed, so decimated, so crushed that they're setting up for what is likely to be an enormous, gigantic, massive bull market. And I'm going to tell you about one stock very quickly at the end of this video that is set up to do well. I mean, I think the whole sector is going to do well, but I'm just going to give you one example of a stock that you'll see. Okay, let me just get to that. But first, let me just tell you some of the reasons why I believe that cannabis is set up to just rocket up to surge higher. Before I do that, remember, this channel, opinion, not advice, like entertainment. I mean, hey, I'm a YouTuber. Yeah, this is not investment or financial advice. So if you make money, good for you. You lose money, your responsibility. All right, with that. So number one thing that I have noticed from having been in the markets for 30 years, having managed big hedge funds, $5.6 billion hedge fund, I don't know, 20, $30 billion under management. I've really had my hands in the markets now for 3 decades. I mean, it's been a long time. And one of the signals of a just completely washed out, just destroyed market, which is a good thing, by the way, just to make this clear, is that it's down 80%. And so cannabis, if you go by MJ ticker symbol, which is the number one ETF, which for the folks who don't know what an ETF is, essentially it's like a fund, a portfolio, a basket that trades like a single stock. So most of you will know MJ, which is the cannabis ETF with the most amount of money in it. That thing's down 80%. So first sort of tick for future bull markets driven by the fact that, hey, everybody's sold. So that means that, hey, and buyers come, all the folks that held on or went and bought at low prices, you're now in a position to benefit. All right. So that's just condition number one. Second one is this, which is that it's now been 3+ years. All right. 3+ years since the peak. So the peak was like right up here in September of 2018. And it's now September of 2022. So it's been a long time. And the reason why that matters is that oftentimes as a sector sort of comes out of favor, it just takes a little bit of time for stock markets to wash out. Yeah, the opposite of these folks, I mean, the paper hands, the weak hands that just wanted very quick gains, instant gains, they're washed out. They never really understood the opportunity, never believed in it. They just wanted a quick pop and out. And those folks, I mean, hey, they've been washed out. And I can say that beyond this, like if you've gone through 80% down, 3+ years, I mean, you are now left with the absolute true believers, And the true believers, they focus on facts, they focus on evidence, they focus on the actual business that underpins the stocks, that represents the stocks. And you know what? When you go and look at the cannabis business, woo, yeah, it's growing. And it's been growing since 2018. And the latest forecasts are for it to be growing to $72 billion by 2030. So this thing is continuing to grow. It's going to more than double in the next few years, more than double. But the stock prices really reflect as if this industry, this sector, this group of stocks, as if like they're just going to go away. They're going to disappear into, I don't know, into the air or something like that. When the truth is that these companies, like the underlying business is incredibly strong, as you can see from this chart. I just want to credit cannabis for this chart, which is a great source of information, by the way, if you are invested in cannabis. The other underlying sort of thing that you want to focus on if you are a speculator and investor is that the audience for cannabis is still strong and is huge and is growing in its ability to buy cannabis. So the folks that really have brought about the current cannabis market, sorry, this is a little small, but essentially the millennials and the Gen Z generations, I mean, they have really grown up in a time of at least relaxation of sort of all the laws restricting the use of cannabis. They are very well informed in terms of what cannabis is, what its upsides are, what its downsides are, and they are spending between $50 and $200. And remember, the millennial generations and millennial and Gen Z generations are rising in their income capability. So this number is only going to increase, which is again represents revenue and sales for the cannabis companies, and also represents investors, because it's very natural today when you have the internet for people to say, hey, I'm buying this brand, or I'm using this all the time. I wonder if I can invest in it. This is something that people can readily go do through their Robinhood account, very rapidly research through the internet. Hey, try some of our services through ATG Digital. Subscriptions start at $10. So link in the description below. So check us out. We've got a ton of cannabis stocks that we have covered. We have been diamond hands, strong hands through the crash because we believed in it. We absolutely believed that the cannabis opportunity was real, it's going to be huge, and that it's going to be worthwhile to have held on. So check us out. So the market for cannabis is expanding. It's expanding. I mean, so the most mature market, and just don't mind me as I get this. All right, this is not actually a cannabis edible. This is actually just a Cliff Bar, but hey, you get the point that I'm trying to make, which is that the market for cannabis is expanding where edibles, which are easy to access, a consumer-friendly product set. I mean, this is becoming the #1 category in the most mature country in the market, which is California. So that tells you that, we are now in the next level, the next stage in terms of cannabis development, of it now starting to put out consumer brands that people are familiar with. They're entering categories, which is edibles, which are something that everybody is comfortable with. Just like, me, I'm very comfortable eating a Cliff Bar, and it's no big deal. And so this tells you that the market for cannabis, yeah, it's expanding. It's getting bigger and bigger. It's entering more and more categories. All right. And so I told you that I would just go through the analysis for one stock, right? I mean, I'm not telling you to buy the stock. I'm just giving you an example because I start with the fact that, hey, these stocks are down 80%. They're crushed. I mean, they peaked 3+ years ago, but their growth is huge. They're really represented and supported by millennials, which is the largest generation in certainly in the United States and in most countries. This is the young generation whose incomes are rising and whose consumer preferences really are starting to dominate markets. So you look at a company called Kronos, and it just really illustrates and demonstrates how washed out the sector is, all right? So Kronos has a market capitalization, which is essentially the number of shares multiplied by the stock price of about 1.5 billion. Sounds like a lot, but actually, truthfully, this is a fairly small company in terms of the overall universe. And just for contrast, Apple's market capitalization is 2.2 trillion, all right? So, this is really a pretty small company, all right? And its stock price is trading for about $3. When you go and look at its balance sheet, it's got nearly $1 billion in cash, $944 million in cash. So the total company is worth $1.5 billion. They have like $944 million in cash, which is about $2. It's a little under $2, but I think let's just round it higher to $2. And so you're essentially just paying about $600 million really for the business, the cannabis business of Kronos. CRON is the ticker symbol for Kronos. And it's not like this they don't have a business. They have a business that in the last quarter grew by 48%. That's going to generate $100 million worth of revenue in 2022. And if they're growing at 48%, you can imagine that by 2030, as that chart that I showed you, I mean, this is going to be a much larger company. And the fact that cash is such a big part of its market capitalization is a sign that really the stock market is getting the cannabis stocks wrong. And if you have a long enough time frame, and for you day traders, and hey, I'm not recommending this. Really, what we do is not for day traders. I mean, it's really for medium-term speculators. You got to have a time frame in like sort of years, 3 to 5 years. Yeah, if we get our timing perfectly right, yeah, well, you could make money in a year, but we can't like say that for sure because hey, the market goes up and down. But if you have a time frame that is long, let's say 3 to 5 years, and you want to make big money, I'm talking about making hundreds, maybe thousands of percent, then these are the kinds of opportunities that you want to look at. These are the kinds of opportunities you want to look at because they can make you big money over time. That's our gig. Big money over time. Big money over time. So, if you liked this video, you know what to do. Oh, and check out ATG Digital if you want to know more about cannabis stocks.